Hi, this is Don McAllister and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. Something different this week as I'm going to take a look at a very hot topic, and that's the cryptocurrency Bitcoin. This tutorial is a little bit different than your standard Screencasts Online tutorial, and just to give you a bit of background, as you'll hear later, I first heard about Bitcoin back in 2012, but my interest in the topic wasn't really rekindled until several months ago. Now, after some research, and despite the fact that Bitcoin had soared to the amazing price of $3,000 per Bitcoin, I decided to purchase some partial Bitcoins way back in September, as it seems now. I became fascinated with the topic and did some more reading and more research, and watched as the price went up to around $6,000 in October, so I bought some more. Now, although Bitcoin is not strictly a Mac or iOS topic, with the current mainstream interest in Bitcoin, I thought it would justify a Screencast Online tutorial to explain the basic mechanics of Bitcoin and try and demystify the nuts and bolts of how the technologies work, but from a Mac and iOS perspective. So back in early November, I decided to plan and record a show about Bitcoin and started recording it about 2 weeks ago as the price crept up to $7,000 and $8,000. As of today, as I'm re-recording this intro after the second or third time, which is about 5 days before the show is due to be published, the price of Bitcoin is poised to break through the $10,000 barrier. So by the time you see this, it could be the same, it could have crashed back down to previous values, or it could be even higher than $10,000. But I have to say that my personal interest is not just in the price of Bitcoin, but also in the underlying technologies and the incredible potential impact it has on society as a whole in the medium to long-term future. I've assembled a list of resources over on the Screencast Online show page that describes Bitcoin and its future potential in a lot more detail, and I'd strongly recommend for you to go and take a look at some of the articles and videos I've linked to. So this tutorial is not recommending that you jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon. It's purely aimed at introducing you to the core concepts and enabling you to take part if you want. Many people think that the current price of Bitcoin is prohibitive, but they don't realize that you can purchase partial Bitcoins. You don't have to buy full Bitcoins. Also, many people think that they've missed the Bitcoin boat, but people have said that at every major increase from $100 to $1,000 and every major price point to date. There's a lot to cover, so I'll be covering Bitcoin over 2 episodes. In this first episode, I'll take a look at a brief overlook of Bitcoin and how it works, the different ways you can acquire Bitcoin, and how to send and receive Bitcoin. In next week's episode, I'll be looking at some alternative ways to buy Bitcoin, storing Bitcoin in a secure offline wallet, and tracking your Bitcoins over time. So what exactly is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a worldwide cryptocurrency and digital payment system. Launched in 2009, Bitcoin is acknowledged as the first decentralized digital currency and is operated over a worldwide peer-to-peer network without a central repository or single administrator. Although originally envisaged as an electronic payment system, the price of Bitcoin has exploded over the past few years, and many now see it as a store of value, very much the digital equivalent of a precious metal such as gold. Everybody has a Bitcoin regret story following the explosion in the price. Well, mine goes back to 2012 when on a MacMania cruise, one of the speakers gave a presentation on Bitcoin. It was fascinating, but still seemed very much out there, and he finished his talk off by encouraging us to buy some Bitcoin to test out this new technology and become familiar with some of the core concepts. Suffice to say, I didn't, but if I had bought $100 worth of Bitcoin back in 2012, it would have got me approximately 10 Bitcoin. And at the time of recording, at today's price, they would now be worth $97,000. But in reality, I probably would have sold them long ago, so it's not really that bad. However, I don't envy the guy who bought 2 Papa John pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoins in 2010. Now, before we get into discussing Bitcoin itself, I must set out some disclaimers first. The intention of this week's tutorial is purely informational, to explore the technology behind Bitcoin at a high level, but also to give you some idea on how it works in real life. Now, as such, I'm not suggesting or recommending that anyone purchases or acquires Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency for that matter without doing your own research and due diligence. The price of Bitcoin is extremely volatile and has seen some huge increases in value as well as some huge decreases. I'm not able to give any financial advice as I have no financial background, and any of the information I relate to you is for informational purposes only. I've also no connection with any of the software or services shown, and by demonstrating these services and software, I'm not endorsing or recommending them. There are alternative services and software available. And as a final note of transparency, I am a recent holder of Bitcoin along with some other cryptocurrencies. Having said all that, it has to be acknowledged that Bitcoin is on the cusp of becoming more mainstream, and many people have expressed an interest in learning more about this fascinating topic. So let's get started. To use Bitcoin, you really don't need to understand how it works, but it sometimes helps to understand what's going on behind the scenes. To that end, I'll give you a simple overview, but there are many YouTube videos available that go into a lot more detail, and I'll post some resources on the show page. Bitcoin was originally proposed in a white paper back in 2008, authored by a mysterious figure called Satoshi Nakamoto. As well as authoring the white paper, Satoshi also created the initial open source code that the current Bitcoin platform is built on. Bitcoin is a decentralized peer-to-peer network of nodes dispersed around the world, running the open source Bitcoin application. Now, Bitcoin is not a company, it's not owned by any single entity, it's not controlled by any third party, and it's designed to allow trustless peer-to-peer transactions between users directly. In traditional financial systems, all financial transactions are usually routed through third parties, such as banks or financial institutions, in whom we trust to manage the transactions and make sure that no one can spend money they don't have or double spend the money they do have. Now, this traditional mechanism can be expensive. It's also open to central failures or government manipulation, and can cause problems when transferring funds from one country to another. Bitcoin is designed to remove all of these limitations of the traditional financial systems and is often said to be the e-commerce system for the internet age. Rather than trusting a central body, with Bitcoin, that trust is built into the distributed system using strong encryption technologies and multiple layers of checking and confirmation by the distributed nodes. In effect, Bitcoin is a public distributed ledger called a blockchain. Every node in the Bitcoin network has a copy of the blockchain ledger, and all transactions are distributed across the network to each node. So if Steve pays Joan 1 Bitcoin, Steve's tally in the ledger is reduced by 1 Bitcoin, and Joan's is increased by 1 Bitcoin. As the ledger or blockchain is distributed, everyone can see the transaction has taken place, although the participants are anonymized using addresses. The transaction is validated and confirmed using powerful and complex mathematical functions by entities called miners, and as a reward for taking part in the validation process, miners earn transaction fees or, in some instances, even new bitcoins. So this is how new bitcoins are created and enter the system, but there will only ever be 21 million bitcoins created, probably by 2140, making bitcoins a finite and scarce resource. So, bitcoins are a cheap, fast, and secure way to transfer digital assets between two users anywhere in the world without using a middleman. As well as being used as a currency, the potential impact of Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies, and blockchain technology is huge. Although we commonly refer to bitcoins as a single unit, a single Bitcoin can be broken down into much smaller units. So a Bitcoin is one full Bitcoin, but there is a milli-Bitcoin, which is 1,000th of a Bitcoin, a micro-Bitcoin, which is 1,000,000th of a Bitcoin, and the smallest unit is a Satoshi, and a Satoshi is 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. So as of today, $1 is approximately 13,000 Satoshis. So if the cost of a single Bitcoin is prohibitive to you, it's still possible to acquire fractions of a Bitcoin. So how do you acquire Bitcoins or partial Bitcoins? There are many different ways of acquiring Bitcoins, but I'm going to mention 3 and I'm going to focus on 2. And the 3 ways are mining. We can also receive Bitcoins from people, or you can convert traditional currency into Bitcoins, either via an exchange or even via a Bitcoin ATM. But as far as mining is concerned, I'll mention it, but to be honest, it's not really something that your average person will get into. It does require significant computing investment, And also the electricity costs are quite high if you're running a mining rig for prolonged periods of time to generate bitcoins or rewards. So check out mining on the internet if you want to sort of look into it in more detail, but we're not going to cover that today. The second one is receiving Bitcoin. Now, to receive Bitcoins, it's completely free. You don't need to set up an account anywhere. What you do need to have, though, is a thing called a Bitcoin wallet. Now, the wallet can be an online wallet. It can be on your Mac. It can be on your iOS device. It can be a dedicated physical hardware device as well, which we'll look at later. So what I'm going to do now is just show you one typical example of a wallet. This one is called Exodus, and it's available for the Mac. As I say, we'll have a look at iOS wallets later, but I'm going to start by downloading and installing Exodus on this Mac, and then I'll explain exactly what a wallet is. So I'm going to go ahead, download and install Exodus from the disk image file, and then once we have it downloaded and installed, I'll run it for the first time. So this is the opening screen to Exodus. It's a software Bitcoin wallet. As I mentioned in the introduction, there are many different types of wallets, but we're going to look at this one on the Mac just for demonstration purposes. So get started by sending assets to your wallet or restore from backup. I will focus on backup once we have some funds in here because backup is critical when dealing with Bitcoins. You need to understand that you are responsible for the security of your own Bitcoins. There's no sort of central place you can go to get lost Bitcoins restored. It is absolutely critical that you are very careful with how you manage your Bitcoins so that you don't lose them. However, first thing I'm going to do though, you'll see here we have lots and lots of different labels. These all relate to different cryptocurrencies or alternatives to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the sort of granddaddy of all cryptocurrencies, but since Bitcoin was launched, there have been many more different cryptocurrencies launched. Now they all work slightly differently and they all have slightly different use cases. But the two main ones here are Bitcoin and also this one here called Ethereum. This is sort of like a more programmable type of cryptocurrency, but I'm not going to go into all the differences. Perhaps in a future show it might be worth covering some of the more common cryptocurrencies. We're going to focus really on Bitcoin. First thing I'm going to do is to go into my settings, and I'm just going to uncheck everything except Bitcoin and Ethereum. Okay, that was speeded up slightly, as you might have guessed. I'm also going to go to localization. Right, it's set to United States dollar, which I'll leave. I could change this to GBP if I wanted to, because once we have some Bitcoins in here, it will display the value of the Bitcoins to me. But US dollar's fine, we'll leave that for now. You can also go in and change the skins if you want to have different themes, but that is fine. I'll go back to portfolio, and we just see the two common currencies down here, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Next thing I'm going to do is go to my wallet. So we have two wallets, again, Bitcoin and Ethereum. I'm going to stick with Bitcoin. And there are two buttons here, one to send Bitcoin to somebody and one to receive. But as of yet, I have no Bitcoin transactions and my total value of Bitcoin is $0 US. Now, as I mentioned before, to receive Bitcoins, it's completely free. There are no charges that you have to make. The person sending Bitcoins to you does have to pay a small charge, but you can create a software wallet. If you know someone with Bitcoins, they can send Bitcoins to you or partial Bitcoins just to get you started, really, if you want to have a play with them. So what I'm going to do is go to receive, and this displays my Bitcoin address. Now this address is specific to this particular wallet. If you have multiple wallets, they will have different addresses. It's also possible to have different addresses for the same wallet. Now this Bitcoin address is also displayed as a QR code. So if you have an application that reads QR codes, you could scan the QR code to get the Bitcoin address. You can copy the address into your clipboard if you want to paste it somewhere else. I could print it. So if I wanted to print it and physically give it to someone or send it to someone, I could. I could also email it as well. And I can also visit this address on the blockchain. I'm not going to do that at the moment. I do want to make absolutely sure that I get the correct address. And it's extremely important that you do have the correct address when sending Bitcoins. I'm going to send Bitcoins to this wallet from my personal account, so I want to make sure that I get this address properly. So because it's on another Mac, I'm going to email this across to the other Mac so I can make sure I get the correct address. We'll just send that off. I won't show you sending the Bitcoin. We'll look at sending Bitcoins later on. But let me just go across to my other Mac. And if I just go to the main page here, and I'll send a milli Bitcoin That's 0.001 of a Bitcoin across to this wallet. So let's see what happens. Literally, within the blink of an eye, I've sent the Bitcoin across, or the 0.001 Bitcoin. It's the equivalent to $7.43, and that's now been received within my software wallet. Now, you will notice two things. First off, it's saying pending. Now, that's because the transaction has not yet been confirmed. And as I mentioned in the introduction, part of the Bitcoin protocol is that all transactions are validated and confirmed, and that's done by the miners. Let's just leave this in its pending state and see how long it takes for the transaction to be confirmed. So here we are 4 minutes later, and you can see now that pending button has disappeared. So the transaction has been validated and everything is completed. I don't need to do anything from my end. The validation is automatic, and I now am the proud owner of 0.001 Bitcoin. Probably worth diving in a little deeper into the confirmation process. The speed of the confirmation process is in effect controlled by the sender of the Bitcoin, because they are the ones that pay the transaction fees, and the transaction fees paid by the sender of the Bitcoin can affect how long it takes to be confirmed. So if they pay more in transaction fees, the transaction is confirmed sooner. If there's no real urgency with the transaction, they can pay less in fees, and then it will take longer for it to be confirmed. Also, the fees paid aren't based on the value of the transaction, but on the size in bytes of the transaction itself and the amount of traffic the network currently has. This does lead to some problems when using Bitcoin as a currency for small value purchases. So if you're trying to use Bitcoin as a micropayment service, it's not that efficient because currently the fees are very high. However, there are technologies in the pipeline that should alleviate some of the current issues with transaction speed and costs, such as SegWit and a thing called a Lightning Network. And they are being built to sort of bolt on or integrate with Bitcoin to both speed up and significantly reduce the cost of transactions. So transferring large amounts in Bitcoin is very simple, very straightforward, and very inexpensive. Smaller amounts, not so much. I should also point out that at the moment, most people don't use Bitcoin as a currency. The primary use of Bitcoin at the moment is as a store of value, and that will change as these new technologies come in place to speed up transactions and reduce the amount of fees charged when making micropayments. But after saying that, let's go ahead now and take a look at the backup situation. If my Mac were to crash at this very instant and be unrecoverable, I would lose my micro Bitcoin. And that's because Bitcoins aren't physical things, they are digital. And the Bitcoin itself is actually part of the blockchain. So I haven't transferred the Bitcoin to my wallet. My wallet holds the private keys that give me access to the Bitcoin on the blockchain. So Bitcoin's not physical, they're digital. They don't reside within the wallet. All the wallet holds are the cryptographic private keys that give you access to the blockchain and prove that you own the Bitcoin that's stored on the blockchain. So it's critical that you back up your wallet in the best way possible. So to do that, if we go to backup, right, I need to create a password. Once I've created the password and created the backup, I can recover my wallet if I need to. If I need to move the wallet onto a different Mac, or if I just need to restore it onto this particular Mac, if I have a particular problem with the Mac itself. So for this demo, I'm going to put in a fairly strong password. So George, Paul, Sky, Blue, Pink. But I'm going to go ahead and say next. Need to put it in again. So the passwords match, so we'll say next. Now this is my recovery phrase, or sometimes called a seed, and this allows me to get back the wallet in case I need to restore it to my Mac. So as it says, write or print this and store it in a safe or locked vault. Without it, you will not be able to recover your money if something goes wrong. If you are doing this in real life, be sure to write down these 12 words. Otherwise, if you lose your wallet, you can't restore it. But I'm going to go ahead and say next. So we're almost done. Type in your email address to send a backup link for safekeeping. You'll need this if you lose access to your computer. And we'll say finish. So I now have an email, or should have an email. Let's go across and have a look at mail. Yep, there is my backup link, so I can recover my wallet. If I go back to Exodus, I also have my 12-word backup phrase. So I can now safely go back to my portfolio. So I can see my total portfolio is $7.44. That's 100% Bitcoin with 0 Ethereum. Just a quick post-production note. I should have really shown you that if you click on these USD values, you will see the total value of the Bitcoin that you have within your wallet. And of course, the USD value displayed does change based on the current value of Bitcoin. So that's having somebody send you Bitcoin, but of course, you're unlikely to have anyone send you Bitcoin for free. You might request Bitcoin in payment for something, but to be honest, most people, at the moment at least, will need to go on to an external service to buy Bitcoin. Now, there are very many different services that allow you to do this, allow you to exchange normal currency for Bitcoin. You can even buy Bitcoin from ATM machines, but let me just pop up Safari just to give you an example of some of the services. So Coinbase is a service whereby you can go in and you can buy Bitcoin, and you can also transfer Bitcoin into a standard currency, what's called fiat currency, which is standard currency that's issued by a bank or a country. Another one is Kraken. Kraken.com is another Bitcoin exchange. There are Bitcoin ATM machines throughout the world. I've never used one, but you can see there's 1,100 in the United States, 291 in Canada, 95 in the United Kingdom. Now, the nearest ones to me are in Manchester, so a bit far away for me to go to. But as I say, you can use standard cash to go in and buy Bitcoin. I think they print out a QR code that you can scan in and save to your Bitcoin wallet. But for this demo, I'm going to go across to Coinbase. Again, I'm not recommending Coinbase. I'm just going to use it as an example. You could try any of the other services. I'm going to sign up using my demo account, and I'm going to have a go at buying some Bitcoin. So let me go ahead and go through the sign up process. So we'll say sign up. First name, last name, email, choose a password, certify, and agree to the user policy. So let me go ahead and fill all that in. Now, just as a point of information, if you do sign up to an exchange, you need to put in your full legal name, because at some point you will probably need to validate your identity for the exchange. It's not for Bitcoin's purpose, but for the exchange's purpose. If you're transferring money in or out, they need to be sure that you are a valid person, so you will need to provide some means of identification. So don't get tripped up by putting an abbreviation of your name in, put your full name in, and then you can go ahead and sign up. Now, I need to verify my captcha again. So I hate these ones, but let's give it a go. That one and that one. Right, we're in, and I can go ahead and create my account. Now let me unlock one password to save my login details. I'm going to save my login. We need to verify my email account. And we're in. So I'm an individual. I need to put in my phone number so I can validate transactions. We'll say next. Just need to put my code in from my phone. We'll verify the phone number. And we are in. So this is the Coinbase user interface. Let me just point out a few of the key features. Now, as you can see, we've got the price of Bitcoin. Currently, over the past month, you can see there's an awful lot of volatility in Bitcoin pricing, which is one of the reasons why people say it's still not too late to get into Bitcoin. There is potentially still more sort of upside on the Bitcoin price. But again, that's a decision for you to take. If you want to have a look at the weekly volatility, you can do. You can have a look at a full year. You can see how much it's gone up in a single year. And then all. So this is when this was the really right time to get into Bitcoin, but we're now up here. Let me just change this to US pricing. So if I go to settings, if I go to preferences, and I'll change this to US dollars. And the time zone I can set to the UK. Just go with London. And we'll say save. Back to the dashboard. And we'll put it back to a month's view. So although we've set up an account, we haven't quite finished. We can't make any purchases as of yet. If I scroll down, you'll see this is my portfolio. So I have no euros, no Litecoin, no Ethereum, and no Bitcoin. My total balance is 0. And don't forget that Exodus wallet is completely separate to this. That's on my Mac. That partial Bitcoin that I transferred over from my personal account is sitting on my Mac. So it's unrelated to this completely. But the 2 steps I need to go through now is to verify my identity. So I do need to upload some ID, and I also need to add a payment method to add some funds into Coinbase so that I can then exchange that for Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and say complete your account. First thing is to add a payment method. Tap on add a payment method. There are 2 different types of payment methods you can use to purchase your Bitcoin. The first is via a bank account that can make and accept SEPA payments. These are international payments. And once completed, you can instantly buy and sell. That takes 4 or 5 days to set up. And basically you go in, give them your bank name, your IBAN number, and your SWIFT BIC number. Add the bank in. Once you add the bank details in, you're then prompted to do a simple transaction of around €6 from your bank into Coinbase. And once that's been received and verified, you'll be set up ready to transfer funds from your bank account. Now, the benefits of using a bank account is that you have much higher limits, so you can put more money in, purchase more Bitcoin, and also take more Bitcoin out if you want to convert it. The other option, if you just want to dabble, is to supply a credit or debit card. That allows you to buy instantly, but there are lower limits, so you are limited to the amount of funds that you can put in each week. But I'm going to go ahead and set that up because I'm going to use a credit card to buy some Bitcoin. Now I need to verify my identity. I can use a passport, a driver's license, or photo ID. I'll go ahead and use my driver's license. I'm going to use a mobile camera. So across on my phone. Now I won't, of course, show you this. I'm going to do this offline. So on my phone, there's a link to tap. I tap the link. It prompts me to take a photo of the front of my ID, and then a photo of the back of my ID, and then a link to complete my verification. So if I tap that, across over on the website, they're verifying my ID. Identity is being verified. It will take 2 to 3 minutes. So I'll come back when that is completed. So identity verified. We'll just go ahead and click continue. I can now add my credit or debit card. And as you'll note, they only accept Visa, MasterCard, and Maestro with 3D secure authentication support. And they do charge a 3.99% convenience fee. So not the cheapest way to buy Bitcoin. But again, I'm really only showing you this as a principle of how you would get in to purchase some. Supplying a bank account is a much more efficient way of funding Coinbase to make some purchases. But I really want to show you how this works. So I'm going to go ahead, enter my card number, because I want to put, say, £50 into Coinbase so that I can demonstrate how to purchase some Bitcoin. So now my debit card is registered with Coinbase, so I should be able to buy Bitcoin up to my weekly limits. I will show you an alternative way of buying Bitcoin using Coinbase later on, and that includes the use of a bank account. But because I don't want to wait 3 or 4 days to record the show, I'm going to show you the simple way, and then I'll show you the more complex way later. Now, of course, the price that you pay for your Bitcoin will depend on the time when you buy it. For instance, here, had I bought it on the 13th of November, it would have been $5,898, whereas now it's 7,000 odd. So if you're clever or if you're lucky, you can get the timing right. Perhaps buy it when it dips down. But the problem is you never know when it's going to dip down or how far it's going to dip. So I'm just going to go ahead and buy it at the current price. If I go to buy, sell, we get this page of 2 tabs, buy and sell. Well, I'm going to buy. Options to buy Ethereum and Litecoin are on these buttons, but we have the Bitcoin button checked. My payment method is my registered debit card. Had I set up my bank account, I could select my bank account from here as well. My weekly card limit is 500. And then here is where we go ahead and specify how much we want to buy. So this button will buy you the max, so that would be £500 worth. But let's just go with £50 worth. So that's going to buy me 0.008. So that's 8 milli Bitcoins. And over here, I can see the price, the Visa debit card, when it's going to be available. So it's instantly, and it's going to deposit it to my BTC wallet, BTC for Bitcoin. They're going to charge me a fee of £2.19. So I'll actually get £47.81 worth of Bitcoins. The total will be £50. Let's go ahead and see if this works. We'll say buy Bitcoin instantly. We'll confirm the buy. I'll need to verify with a secure 3D code. Click submit and wait for the buy confirmation. So back on my dashboard, that purchase did go through okay. If I scroll down to the bottom, I can see my portfolio. So my portfolio on Coinbase consists of 100% of Bitcoins, 0.0082 Bitcoins. Current value is $61.71. I have no Euros, no Litecoin, no Ethereum. And my recent activity shows me that I bought this Bitcoin using a Visa debit card on November the 16th. And that's exactly how many Bitcoins I have. Now I can get to this information another way as well. These, by the way, are all wallets. So this is a Bitcoin wallet. This is a Euros wallet, a Litecoin wallet, and an Ethereum wallet. If I go up to accounts, I can see my wallets in a bit more detail. So there's my Bitcoin wallet with the total amount of Bitcoin in. And as before, when we looked at Exodus on the Mac, I have a send button and a receive button. Now, if you think back to how I explained what the Exodus wallet was on my Mac, that's basically a software wallet that contains the private keys that give me access to the Bitcoins stored on the blockchain. Now, Exodus is commonly known as a custodial wallet, as I have custody of the private keys. Now, that means I have complete control and no one can freeze or steal my Bitcoins without access to the private keys. Here on Coinbase, the private keys I don't have access to. The private keys to the Bitcoins that I've purchased using Coinbase are stored on Coinbase. So this means that Coinbase is a non-custodial wallet. I have no control over the private keys, and I'm placing my trust in Coinbase to manage them and keep them safe. And that difference is quite crucial. So at the moment, if anything were to happen to Coinbase, I'm not saying it will, it's a very secure system, but I don't currently have ownership of the private keys for this $61 worth of Bitcoins that I've just purchased. I'm trusting Coinbase to look after those keys for me. Now, in fairness, this really isn't any different to virtually all of the traditional financial systems that you have your fiat or standard currency stored with, such as your bank or PayPal. You're trusting that the bank doesn't get robbed or that PayPal doesn't freeze your account. However, one of the benefits of Bitcoin is that you can take responsibility for the private keys and guard against theft or remove the ability for anyone to freeze your account. So, I mean, for $60, it's probably not a big deal because the rule of thumb is really if you're putting money into Bitcoin, it's money that you can afford to do without, money you can afford to lose completely without it affecting you. You wouldn't put your life savings into Bitcoin at the moment. So if something was to happen, it's no big deal, I've lost $60. But if this was $600 or even $6,000, do you really want to have your Bitcoins on an online service where you don't have access to the private keys? They are secured by my login and by my two-factor authentication, but again, I'm trusting Coinbase to manage or to look after those private keys. And there is a sort of consensus within the Bitcoin community that if you have a significant amount of Bitcoin, that you don't really want to entrust third parties with your private keys. And there is a saying that if you don't control your private keys, it's not your Bitcoin. You really want to bring them off the online service and store them either in a software wallet, such as on your Mac, or even better, in a dedicated offline sort of cold storage device. Something like there is a device called a Trezor, which enables you to store your private keys on a separate hardware device. And we'll look at using a Trezor later on. Now, let's not worry too much about having our Bitcoins on the online service for now. I can at this point, if I wanted to, receive Bitcoins into Coinbase. If I wanted to send more Bitcoins there, let's say I wanted to send the Bitcoin that I had in my Exodus wallet into Coinbase, I could do that just by clicking on here, showing the address, and sending my Bitcoins from Exodus to this address. Or more likely, I might want to send my coins from Coinbase to somewhere else. Again, I've got a send button here. All I would need to do is enter a Bitcoin address, specify the amount of Bitcoin I wanted to send, and then click continue. But I won't do it from here. Or I could sell my Bitcoins if I wanted to. if I go to the buy sell option, and this time instead of buy, click on sell. So I've got my Bitcoin wallet with all the Bitcoins in. I can deposit to my Euro wallet. I can specify the amount of Bitcoins or Euros I want to sell and then sell them instantly. And then once they're in my Euro wallet, I can transfer that to my bank account. But before we do any of that, let's go and take a look at the Coinbase app on iOS. Now, the Coinbase app on iOS is just a portal to Coinbase on the web. Again, you don't have the keys, they're controlled by Coinbase. Now, we will take a look at a custodial wallet on iOS later on, but let's take a look first at the Coinbase iOS app. So across on my iPhone 8 Plus, if I go into the App Store, you'll see there is a Coinbase application. Again, this isn't a Bitcoin wallet. This is purely an application to allow you to get into your Coinbase account. I've already got it installed and I've already configured it with my login details, etc. So as you can see here, I've got my current balance, $61.72. I can see the price charts of Bitcoin. I can go to my accounts. So there's my Bitcoin wallet. All the other wallets are currently empty, but if I tap into here, I can buy, I can sell. So if I wanted to buy some more Bitcoin from here, I can just tap buy. It's picked up my Visa debit details from my online account. So if I wanted to buy another 0.02, that'd be £120, £3.88 in fees, tap buy, and that would initiate the transaction for me. But I don't want to do that at the moment. We'll come out of here. I can sell from here as well. And up at the top, I've got options to receive Bitcoins into my Bitcoin wallet. Again, I don't really want to do that at the moment. Or I can send Bitcoins from my wallet to another application. In fact, let's try this. Let's try sending some Bitcoins across to my Exodus wallet on my Mac. So across on the Mac, so I've got my Bitcoin wallet here. If I say receive, so there's the QR code and the Bitcoin address, but on the iPhone, so rather than Bitcoins, let's send an amount. If I tap on these two arrows, and let's send $20 worth. Tap send. Right, where to send it to? If I tap little QR, and then I can now, there we go, just position the camera of the iPhone above the QR code on the Mac. I can send some notes, I can see the fees, etc. Now, even though you've used a QR code scanner, it's always best to just do a quick double check that the Bitcoin address that you've scanned matches the Bitcoin address that the QR code has picked up, just in case. So I'm just going to go ahead and say send. That's currently pending. If I go across to the Mac, so probably a minute, 2 minutes later, you'll see that that transaction has now appeared in Exodus. It's still pending, so that has to be confirmed by the miners, but I can now see my balance is $27.46 USD, and that is safely secured. I have private keys for that amount within the Exodus wallet. And across on Coinbase, if I go across to accounts, so my Bitcoins within Coinbase, I still have $33.64 remaining over there. So I think what I'll do is I'll leave it for today. It's been a long day recording. What I will do tomorrow when I come back is to set up an iOS wallet on my iPhone, and then we'll transfer the remaining Bitcoins from Coinbase across to a new iOS wallet where I have control over the keys. So it's now the morning after. My pending notification on that last transaction has been cleared. The transaction has been confirmed. So I now have, well, it was $27. We had another slight increase in the price of Bitcoin last night, so it's now $28.26. But what I want to do now is to go across to Coinbase and to move my remaining Bitcoins or partial Bitcoins away from Coinbase onto an iOS application. I'm going to install a custodial wallet on iOS and move some coins across to iOS. So if we go across into the App Store, and the application I'm going to install is Bread, this Bread Bitcoin wallet. It's a free application. It's a custodial wallet, so it will allow me to keep the keys on my iOS device. So if I just tap Get, and then I'll use Touch ID to install, and we'll just let that download. So we'll run Bread for the first time. And two options: I can create a new wallet or I can recover a wallet. So if I had installed Bread before, either on this iOS device or another iOS device, during the installation process, during the creation of a new wallet, you do get prompted with a recovery seed, as we saw before with the Exodus wallet. And that seed, as long as you write it down and keep a record of it, enables you to recover your wallet. But let's go ahead and create a new wallet on here. So first off, I need to set a PIN. Because this is a demo machine, I'm just going to use a very, very simple PIN. Of course, you would never use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll re-enter my PIN. And then we come on to the paper key. So this is the seed. This is the key that you need to restore your Bread wallet if ever your iPhone is stolen, lost, broken, or upgraded. And again, because this does give you access to the Bitcoins protected by the key, it's very important that you keep hold of this in a secure place. So I'll just tap write down paper key. And now we're going to be presented with 12 words, and I have to write down each word individually. So the first one is birth, and I'll go through, hit next each time, and I'll write down each individual word. Now at this point, just to confirm that I've written everything down correctly, it's asking me to enter word 2 and word 9. So I'll do that and hit submit, and that should take us into the application. So here we are in Bread. What I need to do now, remember we're going to transfer some funds across from Coinbase into the Bread wallet. So I'm going to receive funds within Bread. So if I tap the receive button, and that produces this pop-up with a QR code and the long account address that I need to use when I'm sending Bitcoins into the Bread wallet. Now again, you always want to make sure that the address is correct, and copy and paste it rather than type it out or use a QR code reader. But I'm going to email this across to my Mac so that I can access this address from Coinbase. So if I just tap share, and then I'll tap email. Okay, so that's got both the address and the QR code. And then I'll just address it to myself and we'll send that email off. Now, if I go across to my Mac, hopefully that email will have arrived. So the email has safely arrived on my Mac. I'll just go ahead and copy the account ID that I want to send my funds to. And then with that copied, flick across to Coinbase. Now in Coinbase, I need to get to my wallet. So I'll click on accounts, and then in my BTC wallet, my Bitcoin wallet, I'll click send. So all I need to do is enter the recipient. So this is the address that I've just copied from the email. So I'll paste that in. And then the amount I want to send, well, I'm actually going to send all my Bitcoin. So if I click on here, I can click this button that says send max. And that's the entire amount of Bitcoins held within Coinbase. I can see the network fee is going to be $1.23, which is fine. I'll just put a quick note in and then hit continue. And because I've got two-step verification set up on my iPhone, I'll just pick up my iPhone, and that has now arrived. Enter the code in to Coinbase. And with that in, confirm, and the transaction is on its way. So there is the pending transaction in Coinbase. Let's go across to the iPhone and see if that has arrived. Just give it a few seconds. And there it is. Now it's still in progress because it hasn't been validated as of yet. So we'll leave that a few more minutes and hopefully that will validate and we'll have those funds on our Bread wallet. A few minutes later, I've just gone, grabbed a cup of coffee and came back, and now my Bitcoins are available to spend within Bread on my iOS device. So if I just tap into here, I can see the details of the transaction. I can come out. So at the top, you can see I have 4,351 milli Bitcoins, which equals £25.22. And then I've got the standard functionality built into the app. I can send Bitcoins to another address. I can receive them at this address. And I have a menu which allows me to go in and change a few different settings. For instance, if I wanted to change this to US dollars, I can just go ahead, display currency, USD. I'll have it in proper Bitcoins. And we'll say okay to that. That's fine. Come back out, close that down. Right, so 0.0043514 Bitcoins. So back across on the Mac, I have some of my Bitcoins stored in Exodus in a secure wallet on my Mac. and I also have some Bitcoin stored on my iOS device within Bread. So that's it for this week. A good introduction to Bitcoin, so hopefully you now have a flavour of how it all operates. Next week, what I will do is take a look at a few other more advanced topics. I'll have a look at a different way to purchase Bitcoins through an exchange. I'll also take a look at consolidating my Bitcoins, removing them from the Mac, removing them from the iOS device, and consolidating them on a thing called a Trezor. And I'll also look at an online service that allows you to track the current rates of your Bitcoin, see how much it's worth and track it over time. And finally, a quick shout out to long-term friend of the show, Klaus Lovgreen, who helped me get my head around Bitcoin enormously when I first started trying to understand some of the core technologies. Klaus put together the original list of resources, which I've posted over at screencastonline.com/Bitcoin, and I've since added to the list. It's really well worth checking out if you're interested in learning more about Bitcoin. If you want to learn more about using your Apple devices, there are over 700 full video tutorials available to Screencast Online members, covering all aspects of the Mac, iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, and even the Apple TV. Now, all full members receive a new Apple-related video tutorial each and every week, as well as a free subscription to the Screencast Online monthly magazine, packed with videos and articles on getting the most out of your Apple devices. Now, you can get your free 14-day trial membership over at screencastsonline.com, or check out some of the free content over on the SEO Showcase app on the iPad, iPhone, and Apple TV. That's it for this week. I'll be back next week with another tip, so I'll speak to you then.